So welcome to the Node.js Technical Steering Committee meeting for February 3rd, 2022. We'll follow the agenda, which was tagged in the issue, and that issue was number 1160. Before we get started, does anybody have any announcements that they'd like to share?
We landed fetch.
Yay! The other one that I will pass on from Mary is she's been starting to look at the future build toolchains initiative again. She has some good PRs to capture some sort of initial assessment of things like CMake, Bazel, and GN. And the ask was that we basically talk about, well, should we create a team? And as part of the announcements, it's like, hey, if you're interested in joining a team that's going to work on that, there is an issue in the build toolchain next repo. It's issue number 11. And if you can comment there, that's how we'll capture the people who sort of putting their hand up to work on that initiative. I'm sure there'll be other opportunities to join in or whatever, but that's a good way to say, hey, you want to get involved in the initiative as it gets started. Okay, if we don't have any other announcements, then on to the CPC and board meeting updates. I guess we don't have Rich. So in terms of the CPC, I can fill in there. I think I mentioned last week that we had a working session. Oh, wait a second. Let me just promote Rich and he can go for that. Just give him a second to join. I think, Rich, are you there now?
Yeah, I'm here. I am having a little trouble with the microphone, but the CPC session this week was focused on security, and I don't really know that there's too much more to say about that. Michael, what would you add?
I guess I would just add that we're going to see this as a pretty consistent theme this year, I think. What I see is the log4j issue in the Java world has raised the visibility. There's lots of discussions at fairly high levels. And, it was also discussed at the board level in the board meeting this week. And I think there's going to be a pretty big push to help, figure out what can we do on the front of open source and, security, supply chain, all that kind of stuff. So that's maybe the only thing to say at this point is there's going to be a pretty big push on that. And if you have ideas of what we should be doing, can be doing, now's the time where, there may be more opportunity to try and get funding or try and get support or get people interested in those kinds of initiatives. And yeah, thanks, Rich. I did promote Chalker. Anything else you wanted to say on the CPC session, Rich?
No, I mean it was about that one topic, and we didn't cover anything else, and it was a really great discussion, and I don't have a whole lot to add beyond what you just said.
Okay, so on the board front, the board meeting was last Friday. I don't think there was too much of note other than, what I've already said in terms of, the focus on security. And, there's going to be a push on that front. Yeah, I think otherwise, like planning for OpenJS World continues, still hoping to do that in person. Definitely space for a collaborator summit. So we'll need to start figuring out the planning for the node component of that. But otherwise, I don't have any other updates on that front. Okay, so I guess we can move on to the issues that were tagged for the agenda then. The first one is managing feature requests. This is number 41113. It was on the agenda before. We've talked about it a few times. I think the ask last time was that a few more technical steering committee members get involved, review, hopefully approve. The PR that's out there I think that has happened. We now have, let me just take a quick look. Yeah, we now have five people who have, well, I guess I see 5 TSC members who've approved that. The main thing being, I think, of note is, I would look at once that lands and turning on something like Stalebot to start closing really old feature requests with the content and discussion we've had in there. So I think it's got enough approvals to land. Just if you have any concerns or objections, this is sort of the last call to get in there and make them. Otherwise, I'll land that probably later today.
Just to be double sure, this is a proposal to manage the stale feature request and their life cycles, not necessarily a mean to basically segregate valuable feature requests and drive them to closure. That's not the intent of this PR.
No, this one pretty much captures what we do today, except that it adds in that after a certain amount of time, they'll be marked as stale. So yes, it's more around what do we do, which is we don't actively manage them today. We leave it up to individual collaborators to look at them and decide what to do, and then actually turn on some automation to cut down. We have something like 200, and I think over 150 of them were like a year or possibly 2 years old. So sort of try and cut it down so that we'd have a list which is more recent active. I'm hoping that, once this is landed, it's a good place for us to document something more active if we work or agree on doing that.
Yeah. Yep. I'm more interested in that. So probably once this lands, we can think about a practical way of driving feature requests to meaningful closure.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think Michael Zasso has a few ideas about, it's like a GitHub project feature or something like that. So I think if we could, I think that is, the next step is to start to discuss that and like, what could we do to more actively manage those? If we had a good way of surfacing like the ones that looked the most important, we could even like add a section to this agenda to go through them or something like that. So yeah, let's, we can start to think of those ideas.
Sure, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions before I move on to the next one? Okay, if not, the next one is docs, clarification around real world risks and use cases of VM module. I think we left this one on the agenda because we want for visibility, but I think we'd agreed that adding more clarity there was useful, and it was back to GitHub to actually do that. Is there any updates people want to add or discussion we should have here?
I believe I had said that I would open a pull request with the additional language, and I have not done that, but I intend to. If someone beats me to it, great, but if not, I'll do it, and I'll try to actually get it done this week.
Okay, sounds good. The next issue then is rename default branch from master domain. I don't think we've made any progress on that. There's just a few key. We've covered the vast majority of our repos, but the last few are a bit harder because they have more integration, other things, so we have to be careful. So I don't think there's any update unless anybody else has any updates on that one. Okay, the next one is handling unintended breaking changes, number 1156. I think Mary had opened that. We did discuss last week. And I think the agreement, the suggestion, and I think from what I remember, the agreement was we should, that there's value to documenting what we would do. Obviously, there's things that would apply on a case-by-case basis, but having a default set of actions or whatever would help us move quickly enough so that things don't happen sort of de facto. And I think we'd answered Mary's question on this front. So I don't know if anybody has anything else to add on that one, or should we leave it on the agenda? What do people think? Maybe I'll suggest we leave it on the agenda till next time for when Mary's here, just to make sure that we don't take it off when she still thinks there's something to be discussed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and maybe someone can leave a note if we want to. Someone can leave a note in the issue saying, pinging Mary and asking if it can be closed or if there's more to be done.
Maybe I will just put that in. Do that right. So I'll just say agreed. Agreed last week in last week's TC meeting on actions. Does this still need to be on the agenda? Okay, the next one is invite TSC members in the Google Calendar event for meetings. Mary was championing and pushing that forward. I do think I received invites. I don't know if everybody else who'd asked for them has gotten the invites.
Yeah, I too got a number of invites.
I did receive the invite. The only remark I have, it's there's a Google Meet link instead of the Zoom link. Maybe I can add a comment to the issue. But
Yeah, that would be good. I'm just looking to see if. There it is. I wonder. Anyway, can look separate. Sounds like we're received insights, making progress, but I think there's still. It was like a few people got added, and we weren't necessarily complete, so we can leave on the agenda till next time. Okay, the next one is vote future of primordials number 1104. I know, Antoine, you've been leading that, so maybe you want to give us an update.
yeah, so the vote is open. There already have been 8 TSC members who have voted. So if you haven't voted, please consider doing it. And yeah, maybe I can ping the GSTSC there. So everyone, in case not everyone is aware of it.
Sounds good. When does it close in terms of the deadline we set?
Don't know. Is it 2 weeks? I think it's a 2-week window, so would be another week.
Okay. Okay, anything else we should discuss on that one, or just wait till next week to see how the vote goes?
I'm assuming that this is one of a number of such votes to come in the primordials, right? This is first of its kind. We are expecting more voting options to come in. For example, this one is usage of primordials on the error path, and that's not the whole direction in terms of primordials. Can you confirm, Antoine?
Yeah, that's the original idea. I guess depending on the result of the vote, we can assess what would be the next vote.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So the next issue is looking for feedback, pointer compression in Node.js number 790. If whoever added that to the agenda here wants to pick it up, otherwise I'm going to look to see who it was. I guess Mary put it onto the list. Asking, is this still something we should push for, or should it be closed? This was open quite a long time ago.
From my point of view, I opened the issue, or I was involved in the issue. Now, from a practical point of view, not shipping pointer compression has not impacted us in any way. So one of the original risk of, so we are diverging with that setting compared to what Chrome is doing from the browser. The browsers are shipping, Chromium is shipping with pointer compression enabled everywhere, which help them reduce the memory usage of their VMs. For us, this has not impacted us in any way. Okay, so it's originally there were the part of this was a worry that by enabling pointer compression, we would by keeping it disabled, we would have some breakage in the GC behaviors or other stuff. None of this is materialized. So the question remains if somebody is willing to work on it and create multiple releases for it, or create some slightly different or create some different ways in which this can be installed. Like can be, for example, very interesting to offer a Docker image, pre-built Docker image with pointer compression enabled, so that an unofficial image with pointer compression enabled, so that we could potentially save some memory when using node.js. This being said, it's I think the issue can be closed, because it doesn't seem that there is many people that are interested in working on it.
We do have unofficial builds with pointer compression enabled. So there's an unofficial builds.node.js.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I can't tell you how many people are actually downloading that. It does exist. I think, I guess the thing we never actually sort of solved or looked at, because it wasn't clear if there was a need to do it, is the fact that I think it was mentioned that pointer compression did have effects on things like native add-ons if they were using V8 APIs. So in theory, there are unofficial builds. If someone wanted to, they could put that into a Docker container, but it doesn't solve the sort of compatibility issue that we never really discussed. That is as far as I know. I think.
Go ahead.
I think pointer compression was somehow involved with an issue you raised, Michael, about tests failing in debug builds on ARM.
Not that one. Not that one. Okay. I think we looked at, and in the end, it actually went away after a V8 upgrade.
Okay. I'm probably misremembering. I thought I saw something in one of the issues discussing that something in debug mode and pointer compression, but
it was something like pointer cage, and now
right
that Milad mentioned. I don't know if that's pointer compression or not. So
fair enough. Ignore that.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with Matteo that like that was the concern. We haven't seen that concern. At the same time, like it'd be great to have, builds that gave a smaller memory footprint, but there doesn't seem to be enough push people to work on that. So I think I'd be agreed that, this could probably close because we're not planning to do anything. And
well, we have done so something that can be done there, it's potentially document the fact that there is an unofficial build with pointer compression enabled. Okay. And how to install it. That's the only bit that I would say it's.
So the only thing I would say about the unofficial builds is we don't want to push them too much because they are unofficial.
Right.
Well, the main thing is that we're not guaranteeing they're going to. We're not guaranteeing for every version of Node that there's an unofficial build. So unofficial builds is not just pointer compression. There are other configurations of Node. I think the Moozle builds, the ones that are actually in the Docker images for using Moozle rather than glibc, those are unofficial, which is an interesting question to look at some point. But yeah, pointer compression's one, and I think there's another one about sort of some sort of tracing option enable. But they're all kind of, we've written recipes to sort of build them in Docker containers, and if they work, that's fine. They produce binaries when we do official releases. If they don't, if they break, then it's really up to someone volunteering their time to go in and figure out why they've broken and fix it. It is sort of, I guess, a best effort thing. So yes, we have unofficial builds, and yeah, they exist. They're not guaranteed to be there for every release of Node we do, but it's a best effort thing.
Maybe we should add the pointers to those to this issue as to basically say, you know, people find this issue. It's like, okay, make sure the pointers to those unofficial builds are there and consider that good enough for now.
I'd be happy with that.
Does it seem reasonable, Matteo?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I'll just take a note, you know, our plan is like, we'll add pointers to the unofficial builds in the issue and then close it out. And, you know, if anybody out there is, sorry, go ahead.
I suppose I should also remark that the unofficial builds at the moment are 64-bit Intel AMD 64 only. So not on any of the other architectures or operating systems.
And I'll just add, if, you know, if there's anybody out there actively using them, really sees the requirement for them, then, like, you know, and are willing to help lead an effort. As Matteo said, it's down to having people who are willing to invest the time to move that forward.
Truly, this is, you know, I know that there are a few companies that would certainly benefit for a reduced memory footprint of their node runtimes. So it's especially on Linux, I would not, you know, I would not purchase this for other operating system, for example. But, you know, it's really, it's up to them if they want to do this, to step in and allocate more resources to build or whatever. Like, it's an interesting idea, okay? And if it doesn't, you know, you see, if it does work.
It's certainly been proven out in things like Java, where, you know, some VMs offer it as effectively a command line option, but it's the way it typically is implemented means that it's not really a command line option. It's like there's two copies of the VM bundled in, or you have separate VMs, and so it's not an easy switch, but it's certainly been heavily used in other spaces. So definitely interesting.
Yeah, it's especially because, you know, you like my tests has shown, I've done some few builds and tests on that, and it has shown that you literally cut the memory usage in half, which means that you can stick double the amount of Node.js processes in the same on the same hardware if they're not using the CPU. So, which is pretty significant from my point of view. So, yeah, that's the gist of it. Okay, so if who wants say half memory node? A lot of people, a lot of companies would want that. So I'm not sure why they're not here in saying, oh, we are committing some resources to do this. So, you know. Anyway.
Yep. Okay, that's I think that's where we're at. So yeah, we've made our pitch out there. If anybody's watching, like, it's not that we don't think this is useful or valuable. Just comes down to, it's not a trivial thing to turn on, and we need people who will volunteer to move forward. For now, we've got the unofficial build so people can actually try it out, and we'll close this issue as, you know, we've done what we plan to do here. Okay, the next one is update GitHub management policy for moderation, number 656. I think I opened this. However, if it's the one I'm thinking of, nope, that's not the same one. Okay, so Rich, you opened this one?
Hang on, I'm pulling it up myself. Oh yeah. Sorry for the awkward silence. yeah, I think we can take this off the agenda. This was discussed adequately in the issue, and I think I'm going to end up closing it.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering if you were looking for TSD approvals or anything like that. But...
Well, yeah, because it was changing who has owner permissions in the GitHub org. It seemed sensible to put it on the agenda to get maximum exposure to the TSC before doing it, but we're not going to do it. It turns out it's not yet, at least, at a place where we get significant value out of doing it. So maybe as the feature develops and becomes more, as it develops, if it evolves into something closer to what we would use for the moderation team, we'll explore it again. But right now, I don't think there's anything for the TSC to do. So I'll at least go ahead and remove the label right now.
Sounds good.
Rich, just as a tiny follow-up to that, if you have feedback that I could bring to the team at GitHub about why we can't adopt the feature right now, I'd be happy to bring that to them and see maybe there's stuff on the roadmap that could help us get there.
Thanks. I think Tierney has already supplied the feedback, but if not, I'll make sure you get it.
Excellent. More than happy to have less work to do.
Okay, the next issue on the agenda is the Next 10 Mini Summit Moderation Documentation. I actually should have taken that off because the summit was held last week. I think it was very successful. There is a PR in our collaborators under the doc collaborators section to sort of document our strategy for HTTP that we agreed on there. As Matteo mentioned earlier, one of the things we agreed was like it made sense to land fetch as the high-level API for clients, and amazingly quick turnaround, thanks to Michael Zasso and everybody else that helped make that happen. And we also had some discussion agreement on documentation. So that's the other action out of there I'd like to sort of push forward is documenting what we agreed in the direction there, and hopefully get more broader, collaborator agreement that we need to do that as well. So I don't think there's anything to discuss on that one. It's a very long-winded way of saying that. Strategic initiatives, so we can move on to those. Mary gave a great update in terms of the build chain strategic initiatives, since she's not here today. She's written some good drafts of CMake, Gin, and Basil. So if you're interested in this, it's I think those capture sort of the pluses and minuses in the discussion we've had about them. And, kicking off also the discussion around native modules, toolchain, they're separate, but, a little bit related. So it's probably good to have that discussion in parallel. And the call out was, looking to form a team who's going to work together on moving that part forward. So there's an issue in that repo, which I have up in the announcements. If you're interested, please chime in there. And I think Mary will be looking to sort of kick that off, not too long from now. The next one, I can see Joy's added her update as well. Joy, do you want to take us through that?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I recently fixed a long-standing bug in VA Snapshot that prevents user from including class initializers in the snapshot. So that's now fixed, and we can finally move, finally revert the code that was class initialized before, but we reverted those because they couldn't be supported in snapshot. So now we can kind of move them out from the constructor again. And another one is there is another bug blocking the use line snapshot prototype, which was a memory bug that an early user found. So I'm looking into that. And also there is a bug blocking the TypeScript compiler tests regarding the mutated globals in VS snapshots. So I'm also looking into that. There is some feedback in the CL. So I'm going to address them. Ensure there are other bugs in VA snapshots when applied to more complicated userland JavaScript. So I'm trying to fix them before landing the userland snapshot prototype. That's why it's been taking such a long time for that to land. And also another thing that I recently learned is that VA turned off snapshot compression by default on desktop in VA 9.8, and that resulted in a size regression in Zeno, which was kind of like 20 megabytes of difference in their binary. And they fixed that by switching to SA4 and the STD and do their own compression. So I guess we can consider doing the same. Not sure if we have those, but at least we can like do the compression by ourselves using the whatever compression library we already have. And VA only has like zlib by default because that's what Chromium has. So they're probably not going to looking into like switching to a different compression library in their own code base soon. So that's what we'll have to do by ourselves.
Why did V8 turn it off by default?
So by default, like before that patch, by default they compress the snapshot with zlib. So you don't have like a really big chunk of data in your binary. That wasn't really a big deal for Chromium because Chromium wasn't really using that much of the snapshot anyway. They don't snapshot much in their binary anyway. So by turning that off by default, Chromium like saves some time in the snapshot initialization because they don't have to decompress the snapshots. But in our use case, that might matter more because we snapshot more. So I haven't looked into like how much size regression we have after we upgraded to VA 9.8, but I will check it out and see if we should do it soon. If that doesn't matter much at the moment, then we can kind of not do it by default.
The other question I have is, if it's a switch, couldn't we just like, if it's not on by default, couldn't we actually just configure it on versus using some other?
Oh, right. Yeah,
like,
we can also turn it on by default.
that just seems like a simple, like doesn't require us to add any other libraries or anything or do any extra work. If
yeah, we can also just turn that on by default. I'm not sure if VA shares the zlib with us, or do they have do our copy of VA has the same zlib, or do they have their own? But yeah, if there is a zlib in our own copy of VA, we can just turn that on.
that's what I was just wondering if, if everything is still there, it's just a switch. Maybe that's the easiest thing for the short term anyway.
Yeah. Okay, I'll see if that can be turned on. Thanks for the suggestion.
Any other questions for Joey before we move to the next one?
No, I was just going to say we do have zlib in the V8 dependency, and we also have a copy of that for our own use in depths. I think there's a PR that's either open or just recently landed to update the zlib from the upstream Chromium fork. I think maybe Michael Zasso opened it. So yeah, I don't know how up to date we are, but we have been using the Chromium for zlib.
Okay, and then the last strategic initiative where we have the champion here is Core Promise APIs. And anything to report on that front?
Fetch has landed, thanks to NDC.
Okay, right. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's a big one. Yeah, I think that's it for today.
Okay. So that sounds good. That takes us to the end of the agenda. Do we have anything else that we should discuss before we close out the public session for this week? If not, thanks for everybody for taking the time to attend and those who are watching the stream. We'll see everybody in GitHub and next week. If the TSC members can stick around